The night the moon disappeared, the whole village stopped breathing. No stars, no light, only silence. They said a woman in white had borrowed the moon, and now the sky was waiting for her voice. In a village called Umuokwe, it was the first night of the new Yam Festival, a time of dancing, feasting, and giving thanks. The drums had started to beat. Fires were rising into the air. Women were painting their faces, and children ran around with roasted corns in their hands. But when the drums called the sky to witness their joy, the sky answered with silence. No moon, not behind clouds, not hiding in shame, just gone. The elders stepped out of their huts and looked up with wrinkled eyes. Hunters dropped their machetes. A baby began to cry, and every lantern in the village flickered like it was afraid. Even the wind stopped moving. Not a single leaf danced. Something ancient had been disturbed. Then someone whispered, "Go and check Ijeoma's house." Everybody turned slowly. Her name was like smoke in the mouth, bitter, dry, and heavy. Ijeoma, the widow who lived at the very edge of the forest, near the trees that nobody dared to enter. Some said her house stood where spirits walked at night. Others said she talked to things that had no shape. All agreed on one thing. Ever since her son disappeared 5 years ago, she had not been the same. She wore only white. Her skin glowed in moonlight, and sometimes at night, people passing her compound heard her singing, not like a woman, but like water trapped in a clay pot, sad, echoing, unnatural. Now the moon was gone, and the dibia, the village priest, threw cowries on the ground. His face turned pale. "The moon has not been stolen," he said slowly. "It has been borrowed by a woman in white." And all eyes turned towards Ijeoma. The elders did not waste time. Before the sun could rise, though it never truly did that morning, they tied their red wrappers, grabbed their staffs, and began the silent walk to Ijeoma's compound. The village was quiet, too quiet. Even the cock refused to crow. Even the market dogs refused to bark. A strange fog had settled on the path, and the trees seemed taller than they were yesterday, like they were watching. "Ijeoma," the chief elder, Nnamdi, shouted when they reached her gate. His voice shook the trees, but no one answered. He turned to the others. "She must answer us." He stepped forward and raised his staff to knock again, but before he could, the wooden door opened by itself, and there she was. Ijeoma, standing in the doorway, still, calm, wearing white from head to toe, not the dull white of morning, but a bright, blinding white that looked like it was made from moonlight itself. Her eyes were glowing, not with fire, but with something older, something sacred. Behind her, the elders could see the inside of her hut glowing, not with fire, not with oil lamp, but with light. Real light, silver, cold. They saw a wooden bowl, carved from Iroko wood, placed on the floor. Inside, it floated something small, round, and impossibly bright. It was the moon, or at least a piece of it, captured and pulsing like a beating heart. Nnamdi raised his staff again, though his hand was shaking. "Ijeoma, why have you taken what belongs to the sky?" She looked at them, not with anger, not with fear, but with something worse, grief that had turned to something holy. "I did not steal it," she said simply. "I borrowed it to find my son." The elders gasped. "You are only a woman," one said, his voice shaking. "Do you know what you have done?" Ijeoma did not blink. "I asked the moon for 5 years. I cried. I begged. It never answered. So I went to meet it myself." Another elder spat. "You cannot just take the moon. She looked at him. Then return it yourself. The ground rumbled, the trees groaned, and the elders took a step back because in that moment they all understood. This was no longer a matter of tradition or respect. This was something deeper. A mother had broken the sky. From the day Ijeoma borrowed the moon, Umuokwe began to rot from the inside. First, the river stopped flowing. It didn't dry up like in drought. It simply stood still like glass. Fish floated on the surface with white eyes. The water smelled like old iron. No one dared to drink from it. The women who fetched the water from the stream began to bleed from their palms, even when they carried empty pots. Then, the children began to change. They no longer laughed. Their dreams were filled with silver eyes and burning trees. One boy drew a picture in the sand. A woman standing on the moon, holding a crying child in her arms. When his mother asked where he saw it, he said, "She showed me." The sky, once full of stars, turned grey. The stars had not vanished. They had closed their eyes. The people returned to the dibia panicked. "Do something," they cried. "Fix this." But the old priest shook his head. "You told me to call the spirit." "I did." The spirit said, "What has been borrowed must be paid for or broken." "What does that mean?" the chief asked. "It means," the dibia whispered, "either Ijeoma returns the moon willingly or we break her." But nobody wanted to touch her, not after what happened to Okoro, the palm wine tapper. He said he would sneak into her compound and bring the mole back like a thief in the night. They found him 2 days later, naked, blind, and laughing into the trees. He could no longer speak, just hum lullabies in a language no one knew. That was when the elders called for Ezeanya, the last living Ozo title holder. He had once survived a thunderstorm by speaking to the wind. His words were said to carry the weight of mountains. They carried him in a wooden chair, his beard white as kola nut. "I will speak to her," he said. When he entered Ijeoma's compound, the air shifted. He stayed there for 7 heartbeats. Then he returned. He did not speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "She is ready to return the moon, but the sky is no longer asking for light." "What does that mean?" someone asked. "She must never speak again," he said. "Not a word, not even in sleep." The crowd gasped. The woman fell on her knees and shouted, "This is wickedness." But the dibia shook his head slowly. "No, that is balance." That evening, every lantern in Umuokwe lit itself. The sky still had no moon, but a strange silver mist covered the village, soft and thick like the breath of spirits. The people stayed in their homes. They locked their doors and closed their windows, but not to keep anything out, only because something sacred was moving and they feared to look. Inside her compound, Ijeoma sat cross-legged, dressed in a wrapper whiter than salt. Her hair braided into 12 long robes that reached the earth. Before her was the Iroko bowl, glowing faintly now, the piece of moon inside it growing dim like a fire running out of breath. She did not cry. She did not pray. She only reached into her mouth slowly and removed a small object tied in black cloth. Her voice, not a metaphor, not a riddle, a spiritual cord hidden under her tongue since the day she first bled for her lost son. She placed it inside the Iroko bowl and the light exploded, not with noise but with silence, heavy silence, deep silence, kinds that rings in your chest and makes bird forget how to fly. Then the bowl cracked, gently like an egg, and from within it rose a wind shaped like a child, small shoulders, thin arms, Chuka, her son. He stood in front of her, blinking as if just woken from centuries of sleep. He did not speak. She could not speak. She only reached out and touched his face with both hands. His skin was warm. His breath was real. He began to cry, and his tears glowed like moonlight. Outside, the first dog barked. Then, one by one, the stars reopened their eyes. The winds began to move again, and the moon returned. Full, round, blinding. Every hut in Umuokwe lit up as though heaven had lowered its lantern. But when the people ran to Ijeoma's compound, they found only two things: a white wrapper folded neatly on the ground, and a baby sitting beside a cracked iroko bowl, whispering his mother's name over and over again, but never hearing an answer. The village of Umuokwe woke up to a sky so bright it felt like the sun had come twice. The moon hung low, full and heavy, lightening the fields and forests as if to remind the world of its ancient promise. But the heart of the village was heavy too. Ijeoma was gone. Only the white wrapper remained, folded like a silent prayer at the doorstep of her empty hut. The elders searched everywhere, inside the forest, along the river banks, even in the caves where spirits were said to live, but found nothing. It was as if she had melted into the wind itself. Her son, Chuka, was now the only living link to her sacrifice. Though he could speak no words, his eyes held a deep knowing. He walked the village quietly, touching the earth gently as if feeling the beat of his mother's silence within the soil. Days turned into weeks. The people of Umuokwe began to understand. Ijeoma had traded her very breath for the return of the moon and the balance of their word. The Dibia declared a new sacred law. From this day forward, those who borrow from the sky must also give what the sky asks for. Sometimes, the price is silence. The villagers began to hold a new festival every year, not only to celebrate the moon's return, but to honor the power of the sacrifice and the deep strength found in silence. At night, when the moon climbs high, the children of Umuokwe sit beneath its silver light. They tell stories of the woman in white who borrowed the moon and the silence that saved them all. Hope you enjoyed this story. If you do, please don't forget to like and share. Drop a comment, I would love to hear your thoughts. And also subscribe to this channel. Turn on your bell notification so you get notified when an interesting and educating story like this drops. See you in the next video.